we have town council kind of here as well. So we have a 6:30 Greenfield Drive Paper Street review discussion. So let me just, before we get started, let me just kind of, we got a letter from one of the abutters lawyers at the noontime today. That's why I asked Chris to be on it. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. The reason that we're dealing with this is, maybe you can walk us through the paper streets, the grandfathering of it. My understanding was that the only thing we were really looking for was the adequacy of the way, for that you've determined that the paper street did in fact exist before zoning. And so up until the concept the premise we're going on was that we're looking at the adequacy of the roadway to service the paper street.
Right. I think, there's no question that the roadway exists on paper. I think it's been, in existence as a paper street, at the registry for decades. And typically when that happens, what that means is there's a lot that has frontage on a paper street. Lots that have frontage on a paper street are often buildable, but you can't pull a building permit for that lot where there's no actual access to the lot provided by the street shown on the plan. So, the owner of a lot along a paper street typically has the right to build it out as a matter of property rights. But the planning board does get to exercise some control over what that build out looks like. So they need the property owner, if they have rights in the paper street and want to build it up to provide frontage, they need to come to the planning board, have the planning board look at it. And normally what we would advise is the planning board should make that property owner build the best road possible within the limits of the layout that are shown on the old plan. It is often not necessarily possible to comply with every last detail of your subdivision regulations when you're talking about a road layout that was shown on a plan in 1920. So it may not be possible for an applicant to provide the full width you would normally require, but you can make them provide adequate access. And by adequate, I mean adequate for the residents of the lot to get in and out safely. And I think also the emergency services to get in and out safely. So you get to review it and approve it, and maybe in some cases deny it, but I'd have to sort of think about that one a little bit. So that's a long way of explaining that, they need your permission to build the road, and they need to build the road in order to actually have frontage in order to pull a building permit. So that's our typical advice when we're dealing with someone who wants to develop a paper street.
So now these lots were done, these are the SMADback lots, just to bring the rest of the board up to speed. These were the SMADback lots done around the lake in 1920s. You had been asked by the building department about a year ago, February of last year, to ascertain whether the lots were in existence prior to zoning. And I believe you sent a letter back to the building department that in fact they were. And then I asked the question about whether or not they were still viable, because the town at one time took them over for taxes. And so that's kind of what has brought us to where we are now.
Right. And that's I think that's a slightly different, but definitely related question. The question that I looked at for the building department a great long time ago had to do with whether or not someone could pull a building permit for this lot, despite the fact that it didn't comply with your minimum lot size. So that question really went to the question of whether you could build, even though it's too small, it doesn't satisfy, what you would normally require of a new lot in order to pull a building permit in terms of size. And because, when I looked at it, I concluded that because the lot had been in existence for a sufficiently long time, it remained buildable, even though it's, much smaller than we would require of a new lot today.
Okay, so where we're at right now is the only thing we can really look at, as far as you're concerned, is the adequacy of the way servicing the lot in front of us. Whether it has an adequate turnaround, whether the width and design of the driveway that they're proposing is adequate to service this one lot that we're talking about.
I think that's right.
Okay, so that's all we really should be discussing right now. Whether or not we agree, and whether it's the road would be serviceable, and whether we approve or not approve. And it's not an issue whether we sign anything either, right? It's just whether the roadway is adequate to support the frontage, correct?
I don't know quite what I'd have to think a little bit about what the board might want to do in terms of, having the road shown on a plan, having the plan recorded, issuing some sort of just even informal decision, describing what you're making them do, and if there's any conditions you want to impose.
So we have to memorialize the roadway at the very least.
We do want to capture what it is you're approving and requiring the property owner to do in some way.
Okay. Does the board?
If we go by what we've done before in similar situation, is there's a specific plan that we point to and say this is the one that the board agreed to, and have that on record.
And they would need to build the road out to those specs in order to pull a building permit.
Correct. Before an occupancy permit could issue.
Right.
Okay. Does anybody on the board have any questions about this, or with Chris before we move forward? It's a bunch of blank looks. Anna, do you?
We're looking at a drawing that is, just want to make sure we're looking at the same drawing. Is 4721 S1
That's the
marquee,
newest one. 18 feet wide.
18 feet wide, 30-foot setback from the paper street, turnaround. I mean, not turnaround, but a T.
T.
Yeah.
T at the end. Yep. To the end of the driveway. Okay. Anna, you had your hand up. Do you have a question?
Yeah. So on the plan, it has 18 and a half feet, but then we had conversations about 12 feet. So which one is it? I mean, if the plan says 18 and a half, then that must be what we're looking to.
We are looking at the 18 and a half. We sort of went back to the developer and told him that 12 feet was not adequate to service this, that really need something along the lines of what all the other roads have done, and they've all been 18 with a T turnaround at the end. So that's what we asked them to do.
Okay. Then I had a second question based on the plan that was submitted. It looks like there is snow storage, and I wanted to ask whether or not that's on the applicant's property or in the paper road, because if it's on the paper road, I would think that wouldn't be allowed. So the snow storage should probably go onto the other property that the applicant owns on lot 91.
It's a good point also that the fact that he has to maintain the roadway, because it is going to be a private roadway. So he's going to have to be responsible for the upkeep of the road, the plowing of the road, and all of that. So, yeah, he's going to, it should be somewhere on the lot, not in the area of the paper, where the paper road is existing. So, anyway.
Did you have a question or a comment on that? I can't tell if you're putting your hand up or if you're just waving.
I was raising my hand. I think that's right. I mean, the interesting thing about developing paper streets is that there may be somebody else further on down Greenfield Drive who has the right to develop that road for more of its length, if there are property owners in there. That may be unlikely, but it is at least a theoretical possibility. So I don't know that you want to let someone, just my own thought is that I don't know that you want to show snow storage in the middle of the road if it's at least theoretically possible that somebody else might want to drive further down Greenfield Drive 5 years from now, 10 years from now, even if that possibility is remote.
Okay. All right, so then we have the plan up in front of us. I don't know if everyone can see it. Do we have any other issues with this? I have questions for Chris before we move forward. Go ahead, Anna.
So I think that given the fact that this letter was just received today, you know how I feel about any documentation that comes in at the 11th hour. I just really feel it's appropriate to give everyone here adequate time to be able to review it and think this through before we make any kind of a decision. And as Chris just said, he also needs to think through what it is exactly that we as a board should do to memorialize this if we were to approve it. So I think that that's a little bit more time. I think it would be appropriate.
Okay, that's one opinion. Obviously, I've had more discussions with Chris about this. We've gone back and forth numerous times about this. So I guess maybe I'm a little more vetted into the solution to this than you might be at this time, Hannah. I think the only thing we're looking at is the layout of Greenfield. We have it in front of us. We've seen it. The only issue, as far as we're concerned, is whether or not 18 feet is adequate to service this driveway. And I think we have enough information in front of us to deal with that issue. Having said that, if the board decides they want to hold off for a little more time, I guess we have to all decide that before we decide whether to move forward or not. So I guess I'll ask the board what their thoughts are on this, given that we've gotten more information, correct, incorrect, or whatever. It's 12th hour about this, or do you want to just rule on whether or not an 18-foot road to service one lot on a paper street is adequate, and we can vote, we can decide that. I guess I'll ask Jeff first. Do you want to continue this? Do you want to decide whether the 18 feet and change the turnaround and the snow storage to reflect what we just talked about, or would you rather continue this?
I have enough information. The letter, I looked at the letter that came in from a neighbor or neighbors, which, I think respectfully, I don't think it made any case that made sense to me based on what we've been told by our counsel. And I do feel that if there are issues, they can be, this decision can be appealed and see where it goes. But I didn't see anything that would make me want to step back. I think 18, whatever's shown, is more than enough. I think we could tonight vote on it and condition it to snow storage on the, the applicant's property. And I don't see any need to push this down the road. We've all been educated on paper streets and these lots that pop up, not just in this neighborhood, but also over in Lake Manawanaki. There are a few of these lots that are dug up and built on, and it causes a lot of consternation in the neighborhood, but yet they are legal lots. And so I'm ready to vote.
Thank you. Delisa, what about you?
I have a question for Chris. Chris, I assume you've had a chance to read this letter that came in today?
I must confess, I've been through it once, but I haven't had much of an opportunity since I saw it this afternoon to go over it in any great detail. So I can't say that I've fully digested the argument.
So you don't know, since you haven't had a chance to really look at it, whether or not they could have some legal rights or concerns that maybe we're not aware of. Because, I understand, Jeff, what you're saying about, yeah, we could appeal it, but frankly, I'm getting tired of all the appeals and I don't want to be slapped with another lawsuit, that's getting
But Delisa, this is an issue about that letter seemed to be more about whether this was a legally buildable lot, which I think is a done deal. Yes, it is a legally buildable.
I agree it's a legally buildable lot, but what we're talking about is not the lot. We're talking about the paper street. And it concerns me that Chris has not had a chance to really review this letter carefully to make sure that we are dotting all our I's and crossing all our T's.
My feeling is if there's a legal argument that precludes them from accessing this lot, we have taken the lot from them. And I don't see how a legal case could be made that you can preclude creating access on a paper street, on a legally established right-of-way to a legally buildable lot.
Right. No,
And you can get an attorney to say anything.
yeah. No,
So,
I get what you're saying. I mean, yeah, that would seem to be common sense. But
in fact, I think we would be liable to be appealed if we decided not to allow this access. I think that would be
Well,
a more
yeah,
precarious position.
what I'm going back and forth in my own mind is whether we should give Chris a chance to really review this carefully and then and let us know what he thinks. That's kind of what I'm thinking along the same lines as Anna.
Well, however, Anna, you brought up the subject of this last minute filings. Why are we allowing a party to, on the day of the hearing, to file something and give it consideration such that we would, I mean, this is a big problem we've been having lately with stuff comes in at the last minute.
Yeah.
Why isn't it turned toward this letter rather than the applicant who's been before us for 4 or 5 months?
So in this particular situation, Jeff, I think because we have heard the concerns of the residents, and this is when the letter came in. And that's one of the reasons why I want to postpone any decision making on this, is because we should consider all information that is presented to us, especially from abutters.
In a timely manner.
In a timely manner. So let's put this on the docket for the next time.
Jerry, what do you think?
I'm less concerned. I get what the abutters are saying. I'm less concerned about that. I'm more concerned about the legal angle of it and making sure that we are adequately protected. And that we're making the right decision based on the law.
Go ahead, Chris.
Just one quick comment. One thing that did jump out at me pretty clearly from the abutters letter that they submitted. There's a suggestion in the letter. I don't think it's not definitive. It does not definitively assert that the right of way has gone away, or that that the easement rights have expired in some way. But it does suggest that might have happened. That somehow the developer's easement over Greenfield Drive might have been extinguished in some manner. That question, I think, if the abutters nearby believe that they have done something to shut off the easement rights that I think the developer enjoys, I would suggest that is a private cause of action that they ought to bring and leave the Plnbrd out of. If they think the easement has been extinguished or gone away, that's not anything that this board is ultimately going to decide. That's something that they would need to go to court for, I think, just as between the private property owners. So that was one argument that was raised in the letter that I don't think is one that this board should tackle, and it's not one that they ought to be looking for a decision from the board on. Not sure if I explained that adequately, but let me know if I should go over that in any more detail.
Okay. Jerry, do you have an opinion one way or the other?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we rule on this, it's consistent with past rulings we've made. We've already allowed similar applicants to improve a road to get access. So we did that when I was on the previous board. Same thing, we made them build to standard and what was adequate. So it's not like we're doing anything unusual. I disagree with the need to review that letter unless we're getting a recommendation from council that we should pause to validate those claims. But to me, that's a last minute delay tactic, and you're just pushing something down the road that you're going to end up approving anyways. I'm not even sure if we denied it, you'd even win anyways. So it's really a formality. The fact is the easement's there. It's a lot. He bought it. He has a right to build. And it's pretty consistent with how we've ruled in the past. So I don't see any need to delay, but that's my position.
And I have to agree with Christie about the gist of the letter is really about whether or not that roadway and the easement there exists and is still serviceable. Not, as Chris pointed out, is not something we can decide. That's going to be decided by the abutters getting it to land court and having land court make that determination. That's nothing the planning board can do. So I think we should decide it. Obviously, I haven't checked mine. I'm assuming there might be one or two people with their hands raised. We should maybe discuss the roadway real quick, then open it up to public, and then make a decision whether we're going to, and we're spending a lot of time on something that we thought was going to take just 15 minutes, but let's try to get it done, try to do as best a job we can with it. But I agree with Jeff. I think 18 feet, we condition it that the snow storage be on the private property, not part of the roadway system. And I do believe that the 18 feet with the shoulders and how it's configured is adequate to address the serviceability of that lot. So I think that's what we should be voting on. I just want to see if the board has any other questions, and then we can open it up to public hearing for a few minutes and then decide whether we're going to vote on it or not. Board have any other questions first?
Nope.
Maren, does anyone have their hands up? You're muted.
Sorry about that. Yes, Sherry?
Sherry, are you there?
Yeah,
Yes,
just a
me.
moment.
Okay, yes. Everything I wanted to say has been said. Thank you. I would like a vote tonight, please. We've been here at 4 or 5 meetings now.
Okay. I think that's what we're trying to do.
Yes.
See if it goes that way. Okay. Anything else, Sherry, or can I ask somebody else?
Go ahead.
Okay. Maren, anyone else?
In Shapiro?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Let me see if I can can't seem to get my video working. My name is Nicholas Shapiro. I'm an attorney at Phillips and Angley. Our office wrote the letter that's been discussed a bunch this evening. Our office represents Leona Turgeon and Gary Allen of 62 Colonial Drive. They're the abutters who have concerns about building out this paperway. And I did want to set the record straight that the letter does not discuss exemptions or not under zoning, whether these are buildable lots. We do address the issue of whether access rights even exist anymore. And we can agree to disagree about whether the existence of access rights is a necessary prerequisite for approval under any kind of subdivision control regime. But I just wanted to point out that the main thrust of our letter, and I would like to apologize for the lateness of the filing, but our office was hired in the last 10 days or so, and it took some time just to get up to speed and review all of the relevant local, the rules and regulations under the subdivision control law in Littleton. And the main thrust of our letter is that this paperway review process doesn't seem to have any textual basis under the rules and regulations. And so just by way of background in terms of what I do for a living, I'm probably one of the few lawyers in the Commonwealth who's ever worked on a case involving the 81 FF exempt lot provision of the subdivision control law, and which was actually a case that I worked on before I was in private practice. It was a case out of the land court, Donahue v. Doherty, which was decided by Judge Grossman after a trial. But all of the cases involving 81 FF exemptions involved people applying for approval of definitive plans. Littleton seems to want to do something different. And I want you all to understand that our main beef legally with how this is being done, now that we've looked through the rules and regulations, is that there aren't any rules and regulations for this. The case law is clear that even if something is an exempt lot, a planning board still has regulatory authority to make sure that access is sufficient. That's the Toothaker and LeBlanc decisions that are cited to in our letter. The town of Littleton would be free to create like a subdivision light process for paper streets. But to do that, you would need to promulgate rules and regulations under the statutory site is 81Q, which allows the planning board to promulgate rules and regulations. And we've gone through the rules and regulations and we don't see any standards. We don't see any rule that actually addresses what it is that Mr. Shaw intends to do tonight. And our main problem with this is that if you don't have rules and regulations, then this is not really even a thing that is moored to the law. And otherwise, I'd also point out, and I think that town council would probably agree to this because it's the issue that was addressed during the conversation, is that for the 81 FF exemption to even apply, a lot has to be conveyed from the original developer. The purpose of the exemption is not to protect developers who record plans before subdivision control. It's designed to protect BFPs who buy lots on old subdivision plans. And in this instance, the property was taken. It was never conveyed from the original developer. It was taken by the town and it wasn't conveyed out to anybody who's a private party until after the subdivision control law was adopted in the town. And so the main thrust of our letter is it's not so much about whether access rights have been terminated. It's that this is something that should go through a normal subdivision approval and review process. And this is not just a mere abstraction. This is about stormwater management. It's about traffic studies. It's about all the things that people in my client's position who have been living with mature vegetated tree cover for their whole term of ownership, and there's been tree cover there probably for millennia, are concerned that a subdivision road is starting to be built. And it is our assessment, having looked through local law, that this is not, first of all, it's not an 81 FF situation because it's not an exempt lot. But it's sort of beside the point because the planning board has not complied with 81Q to promulgate some kind of subdivision light for paperways in the first place. So all we have is a form. There isn't actually a legal standard that's applicable here. So there's no ability for us to even assess legality or not, or illegality, because there isn't some body of local law about how this is to be done. All there is a form that's completely untethered from any local rules or regulations. And so that's really our main issue here, is that based on our assessment, having done a lot of this work, is that this should be handled like any other subdivision road, and it's not being, and that does make a difference to abutters. And so for that reason, we don't think it's appropriate for a thing that just isn't a thing to be allowed. And I understand there's been a lot of decisions before allowing this kind of work to go on, but just because it's happened before doesn't mean that it was legal then, and it doesn't mean that it was legal now. And so that's why we would ask that the application be denied and Mr. Shaw be asked to file a Form B application and go through the normal subdivision control process, so that my clients can actually assess, more fully what the impacts are and what's being proposed, than this informal process that doesn't have any textual basis in the rules and regulations.
All right, Mr. Shapiro, thank you. Chris, do you want to weigh in, or do you want to let us decide what we're doing?
I think it's up to the board how it wants to proceed. I would suggest that as a practical matter, the end result, if you go forward tonight and approve the road as shown on the plan, I would suggest that the practical result is not much different than Mr. Shapiro is arguing for, which is to say that I think in our conversations or in our normal guidance to boards when they're dealing with paper streets that are shown on old ancient plans, our normal advice is that the board should get from the developer the best road that it can, given the layout of the paper street that exists on the really old plan. So I think you've done that by taking the proposal from 12 feet to 18 feet in width. And I think, if there's any other things that the board is interested in seeing to ensure that this new length of pavement isn't going to hurt anybody, the board should do that. So you can hold the property owner's feet to the fire in terms of getting the best road that is possible in this layout, which I think is what was just being argued for. So I don't know that you need, as a practical matter, again, I don't think you need to necessarily have this come before you on a plan labeled definitive subdivision plan in order to, as a practical matter, ensure that this is a safe, adequate, non-damaging roadway that we're going to make this property owner produce. That's all I got to say.
Okay. Thank you. Maureen, anyone else have their hand up? That's it. Okay. I think we need to decide whether we want to vote on it. And if the applicants decide that we don't have jurisdiction, then that's something we can't, as Chris said, as the planning board, we can't make that determination. Someone's going to have to make that determination for us. So I think we've done the best we can with the 18-foot roadway, the turnaround. We'll condition the snow storage. I think we've gone as far as we can with this. And if the people want to take it to another level, then we'll get an answer from land court at some point. But I think we've exhausted every avenue that the planning board needs to take at this moment. And if the board wants to vote on it, I'll entertain a motion for such.
I'll make a motion to vote on the road as proposed.
18 feet wide, snow storage on the applicant's property, not the paper street, with the T turnaround at the end, as memorialized in the plan that's been given to the board, and which we'll send back to the building department as part of the record for this.
Mhm.
Okay. Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. I'll start with you, Delisa. You got to unmute yourself.
I'll vote aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Anna.
No, because we're forcing a vote tonight.
Okay.
We're doing a disservice to the process.
Jerry,
Yes.
and I'm an aye. Okay. So we're going to accept the 18 feet wide with the turnaround at the end and the snow storage in the applicant's property. And we'll send that decision to the building inspector to see if he's going to issue a building permit. Anything else? Pretty much it, right? All right, thank you all. All right, we have 6:45 board business. We're going to probably do that as quick as we can so we can get our any board member updates. I don't have anything. Delisa, do you have anything? No. Jerry, no. Jeff?
Is this Jerry's last meeting?
No, he has one more.
Okay.
Nope. Good.
No, he have one more. June's May 6th, doesn't he?
There is a May 6th meeting, yeah.
There's one more.
New candidates start May 6th?
No, the election's not till after that, right?
8. Yeah.
Yeah, we have cake. We'll still have one more day of cake and ice cream with Jerry. Anna, do you have any updates? No? Okay. Minutes from meetings from March 18th and April 8th. Anybody have any questions about those?
Yeah, only the minutes from March 18th were posted.
Okay. Anybody have any issues? Anna?
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, I just wanted to raise a point about something that I think is important. and that is in our minutes from March 18th. On page 4, it states that you explained the board initially looked at a total build out from train station all the way up Foster Street to the Gutierrez property, but subsequently rejected the idea as that would be a lot of density there. So I have no quibble with the factual content of what you said, and I will approve the minutes. However, I just wanted to state that when you said the board, that was the Littleton Station committee. It was not the planning board.
Correct. I
With
should
that
have been.
recommendation.
I should have been clearer in that. It was when Delisa was chair of it. We had a full build out from the Littleton Station. You remember that, Delisa? Nod your head. Yeah. Okay. It was not the planning board. It was the Littleton Station committee that saw the full build out. Yes, you were correct in that.
Okay.
Good catch.
And then second, I just wanted to clarify on page 6 under marijuana delivery, you use the term online and you said 2 online and delivery establishments. Are you saying, just again for our audience, that the online is how folks would order the marijuana and then they would receive a delivery? So that's what you're saying. Okay.
That's what we're talking about. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So
Okay.
that's all of my comments.
Okay.
Thank you.
Having clarified those, I'll see if we can get a vote on them. All those in favor of the meetings as amended, signify by saying aye. Delisa?
Aye.
All right. Jerry?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Hannah?
Yes.
And I'm an aye. Okay, great. I don't know why we're looking at minutes of the Littleton Station Area Committee meeting.
Yeah, otherwise it's an infinite do loop. We have to hold a meeting to approve the prior minutes, and then you never get to sunset a group. So my request was just to this planning board to approve the minutes of the Littleton Station Area Committee's last meeting on February 9th.
Okay, anybody have any issue with that?
You weren't there, so I don't see why we'd be approving the minutes. I don't understand, Maren.
Otherwise, you never have approved minutes
Well, why
Yeah.
can't LSAC approve the minutes?
because they're not going to meet again.
Okay.
They would have to hold another meeting to approve the prior minutes, and then there would have to be minutes of that meeting that would never get approved.
Can we just approve the minutes, please?
That's my recommendation, is just to have some committee approve them. It seemed more appropriate to have the planning board approve it than to ask the selectmen to do that.
Okay,
That's all.
sort of almost makes sense. Anyway, I'll entertain a motion to approve the Littleton Station minutes that were from February 9th. Want to second that?
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Anna, go ahead, say yes.
I'll abstain. Thank you.
All right. Jeff? Go ahead.
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Delisa?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right, so we're back on to 7 o'clock. Okay, we're not too bad, about 10 minutes. That's not bad for us. We have
Excuse me,
the,
Chair, should we see
Yes.
if there's any public input that's not related to anything from tonight? It was on.
anybody with their hands up, want to speak about something not related to anything on our agenda? Mara? No, nobody there?
Nobody with their hands up at the moment.
Okay, great. All right, so 7 o'clock. So we have 3 things to discuss. The 40R smart growth, the adult marijuana delivery regulation for town. These are all amendments that are going to, recommendations that planning board's going to put to bring towards town meeting in June 12th. Is that when?
Correct,
Yes,
that's what it is.
and the amended senior residential development and inclusionary bylaw. Let's start with the first one, A, the 40 growth. And I just want to remind everybody what we're talking about is an amendment to our zoning to put in a 40R district. It's going to have different intensities of use for the housing, the high intensity, which would be apartments, medium, single family and townhouses. And we've redrawn the map to show areas of 322 units and 80 units. We've taken out the area that's between the Norboom property and the nursing home, which we were hoping at some point would be a an area for assisted living, independent living attached to the nursing home. They haven't seemed interested in the process, so we, rather than
Mark,
muddying the water, what?
I'm gonna have to jump in on that one. The current form of the bylaw still includes 100, up to 123 units on the low density site on 191 Foster
I
Street.
thought we were gonna take that out once and for all.
Well, that's gonna be a board decision, board direction on that.
Okay, so it's still in there now, and it's something we have to decide whether we want to bring it forward for town meeting or not.
Mhm.
But the point is that this is a zoning bylaw that we want to bring to Springtown meeting. The actual application and the site work and the special permits and everything will still have to go before the planning board. If this is approved at town meeting, the developer will still have to come before us for the approval of what's going to be on the 40R. So this is in no way circumventing any input by the residents. Once this, if in fact it is approved, it still has to go through the permitting process. This is just to incorporate a 40R into that area so that we can look at state funding. We can look at a lot of different areas of opportunity for the town, but we need the 40R zoning in order to be able to qualify for that. So having said all of that.
Mark, can I say something too?
Sure.
I think too, and I'm concerned that people don't understand that this property is going to be developed one way or the other. I mean, it's the landowner has the right to do that. So what we were trying to do by creating this 40R district is make sure that some of the town needs were met for a more diverse housing stock, but also put in place some loose design guidelines to make sure that it just didn't end up being a bunch of big, ugly buildings and parking lots. So it's an attempt on the town's part to, I guess, be a more active participant to make sure that whatever does go in there meets the needs of the residents. And I'm concerned that people don't understand that.
And I agree. Delisa, you were on the committee with me. As a matter of fact, you were the chair of it. It's been 2 years. It's not like it's, we just threw some stuff together. It started with the master plan. We talked about the diverse needs. You heard the discussion or the slideshow that Cindy Napoli did about the fact that we don't have diverse housing in the town of Littleton now. We have single family homes. We have, if you want to equate it to a plant, we have, we're losing the roots and we're losing the buds. We don't have any place for the seniors to go to, the roots of the town of Littleton. And we have no place for the young people in the town of Littleton who want to try to stay in Littleton to be able to afford property or to be able to stay with their friends and family that they've known throughout their lives. Everybody's moving out of town. We're stuck with all the single family housing. That's all we had. And, 60 years ago when the town wrote the bylaws, our zoning bylaws, maybe we didn't want a diverse group of housing, but the economy and the economics of what's going on in this country is necessitated the fact that we need density in order to get price down. It's just the nature of what's going on. And it is a process that's going to take a number of years. This isn't going to happen in a year or 2 years. It's going to take a while for the build out, for the approval, for the build out. It's not going to be a couple hundred units all at once. It's going to be not dragged out. It's going to be a timely process, a time intense process. So anyway.
Well, that also gives us time to get sidewalks or onto Foster Street.
Right.
So yeah, I think there's a lot of different things going on that we really need to pay attention to. I'm just really concerned about something going in there that doesn't meet our needs or that is just so ugly. And we know it's not going to be offices. I mean, there's so much excess office space right now. So.
No, I understand. And the other thing we need to think about, it's, it could be a warehouse. Yeah, we could have more.
Yeah, it could be another Amazon warehouse.
But the fact is that we do have housing needs.
Yeah.
And that's what we addressed through the master plan, through the committee that we had here. I know Maureen's probably, we have people with their hands up, so I'm going to open up to the board first if they have any questions. Yeah, in a second. If they have any questions or concerns before we get this ready to bring to town meeting, where everyone gets a chance to vote on it at town meeting and speak about it again at town meeting. We do understand traffic. The last point I was going to make it's kind of the chicken and the egg kind of thing. In order to get funding from the state, in order to get Foster Street fixed, in order to get money for workforce housing, senior housing, everything else, we have to have the zoning in place. We can't get any money or any funds from the federal government or the state for this project, which we've been in discussion. The town has been in discussion with the state about funding this for commuter housing, for workforce housing, for senior housing. None of that happens until this 40R is established, voted, and accepted, and then we can start asking the state for funding to fix Foster Street for the amenities that we're all talking about down there and things like that. But this is the first step that we need to go through in order to get on the radar for the state for funding for this. So anyway, Anna, okay, you had a question or a concern before we start?
Sure. So I just wanted to clarify in terms of the concerns that Lisa, you're raising. If something else were to be built there, these are currently zoned industrial, right? So realistically, the only thing that could be built there is something else industrial, not homes.
No, warehouse, industrial, yeah. Mhm.
The 245 Foster Street, the Longs parcel is industrial A, so that would be the heavy industrial. The 191 Foster Street, the Life Care Center property is Residence R district.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification. So, Mr. Chair, are you
Uh-oh.
going to have us go through the bylaw? Questions on the bylaw. I mean, we were just provided version 8 a couple of days ago. So I think it's appropriate that we open it up to the board to have questions. So are we doing it now or after?
I think we should do it first and then open up to the residents. So since we've seen the latest and greatest of it, does the board have any questions about rendition number 8 on this? I'll start off with Jeff.
One question is general, which I have been meaning to ask. Are these affordable units entered into the affordable housing index that's maintained by the state relative to our 40B responsibility?
They're intended to be. So any of the affordable units that are at 80% AMI or less and don't have any restrictions on children, then those we will be able to add to our subsidized housing inventory.
So
for
with
sale units.
Rental is, every unit,
Mhm.
even if it's not subsidized. Would that be the same for this?
If you require a minimum of 25% of the rental units to be at 80% AMI or less.
So then the entire rental
Building.
component would be, which is a huge advantage to the town. I want to, based on having gone through the 15 Great Road, we are above our 10% threshold, which shields us from unfriendly 40Bs. However, we have growth and we have a new census coming out, which might eat away. Have you looked into that, Maren? If it's gonna, if our excess is gonna disappear, or I would just like to remind everyone and the town members that every time we build a house, every time we build 10 houses, we're supposed to provide a one subsidized unit. So as we've gone through this building boom of single family homes, that does have an impact on what we may end up doing unwillingly and through the 40B process. So this has the added advantage of chipping, knocking that away pretty strongly in that case.
Thank you for the question about our subsidized housing inventory. We are over 13% right now. We do understand that even at 13%, we are not meeting the current affordable housing need. But we do expect to remain over 10% when the new census figures do come out.
Because that's based on the 2010 census. Yeah.
Currently, but when the 2020 census comes out, we do anticipate to still be over 10%.
Okay.
Okay.
That was just a general question. I have some specific questions about the bylaw, which maybe I can just start now, I guess. The number of affordable units in this bylaw, it's 25%, but is that our discretion? Is it required by the state grants? And I'm not criticizing that number. I think it's better than, 40B project would be. But
right, the state 40R guidelines require a minimum of 20% affordable at the 80% AMI.
Okay, so we've done 25%.
That's the recommendation.
Okay, and then I personally am skeptical of the amount of commercial and retail space that's allowed under this plan. That's all I'm going to say. I think it's unrealistic to expect significant, there's going to be some, but I think as I'm looking at the numbers, we're talking about 40,000 square feet total. And I just recently was, consulting with a local strip mall owner whose half his space is empty, and there's nothing, nothing coming in except for very small spaces. Mm-hmm. And when I look at this, it just seems excessive.
I don't disagree on your assessment, especially of the given current market conditions. In drafting those numbers, I was trying to come up with the maximum flexibility for a developer while still being a number that the town could live with. And of course, the number in the final bylaw is up to the discretion of the board to bring to town meeting.
And I'm thinking of traffic concerns might be exacerbated by a lot of retail and commercial development, where there would be trips there specifically for that, in addition to the people who live there. So I think it's too much. And then I am concerned. There's two issues, and once again, this is based on the 40B negotiations we had years ago. We're talking about a minimum buffer of 50 feet. Could we do 75? That was what we provided at 15 King Street, which was a very lengthy negotiation with the abutters. And it seemed to work well since they agreed to it. I think it might be a number that we go for. And then
we pause on that one.
Yeah.
Was that a board decision, Mark? I don't think we agreed to that. Planning board had no part in that.
But are you talking about
I'm talking about 15 Great Road, which is 40B, and the planning board didn't have.
Yeah, I don't think we had any part.
No, but I'm talking about, I guess I was on the Board of Appeals at that time. So we are the ones who had the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we had no.
I said we, that's what I didn't mean planning board.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
So then height, I feel that 50 feet is fine for the high density zone, especially since there is a big potential for lowering it due to the topography. But I feel pretty strongly that the medium density zone and the low density zone, based on what we anticipate are building, there should be the typical 35 feet that we have in residential zones in Littleton. And those are the ones that are more impactful on the adjacent properties.
Okay.
And those are my comments.
All right. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Anna, do you have anything? Go ahead.
Sure. So I think that there is no quibbling with the fact that we need affordable housing and that this presents a wonderful opportunity, especially with state dollars. I do have some questions regarding the bylaw around a monitoring agent. This goes back to the actual definition because we have new language in here that wasn't in the previous versions. So as relates to the monitoring agent, it's confusing because it sounds like either we or somebody else can actually designate the monitoring agent. And it's in item A5.2 in the definition. And I think it's important that there be one rather than either or, because I think it just sets it up for problems.
Mhm. Okay, I think we'll be able to clarify that. The developer hires the initial agent, the initial monitoring agent, but it is the town's duty to assure that the units are monitored in perpetuity. Yeah, we'll find some wording that clarifies that.
Okay. And then new part of this is the PAA regulations. So the planning board determines these regulations, and by when?
They have to be reviewed by DHCD and put in place before you review any application under this bylaw.
What does PAA stand for?
Plan approval, no shoot. It's plan approval process. And that's a lot of the
planning approval authority.
Authority, thank you. A lot of the new, quote, new wording is, I had to go back to the model bylaw from DHCD because most of the new wording is wording that they require.
Yep.
Okay, anything else?
Yes, thank you. So if you take a look at 8.3.1, I wanted to get everybody else's take on this because it's just confusing and might just be me, but it says an applicant may seek development of a project located within the SGOD, which is now it's a new word. SGOD means Smart Growth Overlay District, in accordance with the provisions of the governing laws and this article, including a request for plan approval by the PAA if necessary. So I have questions and concerns about that if necessary, because it makes it sound like, the authority might request a plan for approval or not. So I would suggest that we make that a little bit stronger. So if y'all could take a look at that and provide some input to it.
I would recommend that we cover that detail in section B rather than in section A. In each, the first article, well, the first portion of the article, section A, is the town, the planning board asking for the authority from town meeting to establish smart growth overlay districts. And then part B of the article is the detailed information for the Littleton Station Smart Growth Overlay District. And in that district, all applications would require PAA approval. If the town were then eventually to adopt another smart growth overlay district, it's been suggested that maybe one for the 550 King Street site might be appropriate. And in that case, you would draft another bylaw specifically for that area and decide if there were under any conditions, if there were plans drawn up that would not need further planning board review, then that would allow for that. That's the only distinction there.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Any other planning board members have any questions about that particular 2 sentences?
You're talking about page 4?
Sorry, I need to bring up the document.
Because page 4 for paragraph B and C1 says the applicant shall file.
Yes, yes, it's on page 3.
There's no wiggle room there. Where there may be wiggle room is a few pages down.
Yeah, I'm on page 3 and it's A.3.1.
Page 3?
Yeah.
3.
Applicability of SGOD's scope and authority. I just want to make sure that the role of the
You must be looking at a different
planning board isn't diminished, and that we have that authority to make sure that we are always reviewing the plans. I don't see where there would be any reason not.
There's wiggle room down for minor changes, etc. I think it's like page 8. Design changes. There's areas where they can come and ask for waivers once something's been approved.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would actually try to strengthen this language as well by saying an applicant seeking development shall include a request for plan approval by the PAA.
I thought that's what I'm saying. The one I'm looking at pretty much says that exactly.
Well, but it uses the words if necessary.
Oh, no, the version I'm looking at has no if necessary.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I pulled this off of,
You're on a different page, I think, aren't you?
I'm on page 4, so I think we might be on 2 different docs. I pulled this off of the Littleton Station page. It's the bylaw. Yep.
Does everyone else see A.3.1 on page 3 of what I'm speaking to?
I don't. That's what I'm saying.
Here- Jerry, you're talking about 8.3.4 administration.
It's a 40R zoning draft. I'm on V3. The doc name is 40R zoning draft.
Oh, you're on B3.
V3, Victor 3.
Okay. Oh, V3. Oh, okay.
Version 3?
Yeah,
Oh, no, we're on version 8.
I got the wrong version.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what I was asking. All right, so I gotta find the right version.
You know, rather than go back and forth round in circles with this, obviously Marin's working with Mark Ransicott and Magic and DHCD. We understand that the planning board, it's always been our intention to have planning board have final look at this. This is why we're doing the 40R. That's why we started to do the process, use the state guidelines that are there, but ultimately it's going to be the planning board has final. So I think we all agree with that rather than go back and forth and spend time with this. Why don't we, if the board has any other concerns about draft number 8, we're going to get it all done. Marin's worked tirelessly trying to get this thing in a format that DHCD will accept. We'll see a final copy of it rather than spend more time with this. I think it'd be better to A, keep Jeff awake, and B, get the I saw the input from the neighbors and any other issues we have with this.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, you have like 4 other items specifically on the bylaws.
Is it paperwork stuff or is it substantial changes to?
Well, you know, it's a little bit of both. So let me give you an example. I think that it is important that we define the term of equitably integrated. It's an A5.5. And I think it needs to be defined because I would like the affordable units to look like all the others on the outside. It's something that we have really done strongly here in Littleton. And if that's what that term means, great, makes me happy. So if we can just get that term identified in section or in Article 32, B22E and 3D, this is very important to me, changing the term daycare to early education and childcare. Then in B2J and 3E and 4A, this is a question for everybody. It says senior residential development as authorized under an SRD special permit. So I thought that was part of a 40R was we don't address special permits anymore. So is that just in there to identify that we have an SRD, or do we actually go through a special permit process for any senior residential developments that might be built here?
Okay, the way it's written is the uses that are listed there are the uses, the only uses that would be allowed under the 40R district, where so if a development were to include senior residential development bylaw use, then that would go through the special permit process, yes. But it would be allowed in a 40R, in the 40R overlay district, would be allowed by the 40R overlay district.
And we're sure of that?
Yeah, that's,
I'm just asking because the 40R seems pretty clear that it's sort of like as right is everything. So that's why I want to make sure to ask.
yeah, otherwise, you can imagine if there was a use closely related to the life care center that might not quite fall into the 40R district uses, but I wanted to make sure that we captured all of those types of uses in the 40R district.
Okay.
To me, it allows for more flexibility for the property owner.
Okay, well, I just wanted to make sure to cover off on that. I wanted to concur with my colleague, Mr. Yates, about the buffer. I would actually request that it be, you know, a football-sized field of trees as a boundary line, both for the abutters and then also for the viewership of the road. So I concur with that. And before we move on, I also wanted to ask Maren, where are we in terms of the process? I know that in the last presentation, you had the slide up about the 40R process.
Yep, and as soon as Mark Rassicot is back from vacation this week, then we'll circle back with him. MAPC was working on updating the mapping and pulling the final worksheet that is part of the official application to DHCD. So after he gets back, then we'll set a timeline for officially submitting all that information to DHCD.
So if we're just looking at version 8 today and we'll have comments and we have to still get that to DHCD, but then they're supposed to give us a response back before town meeting so we can vote at town meeting. How is that looking for timing?
DHCD has this version already. They have not shared yet what their timing will be.
So we provided version 8 to DHCD even before the planning board had an opportunity to talk about it? That doesn't seem okay.
That was the process that we agreed to early on, that we would work closely with DHCD as we're drafting the bylaw, and we would work with them on the input. It's a very much a collaborative effort between the work that you're doing and the work that DHCD is doing.
Okay, anybody else have any questions? Anna, do you have anything else, or are you good for right now?
I think my colleague, Mr. Yates also brought up the traffic piece of it. I do think that because it's such an unknown, that it would be appropriate for there to be a traffic study done to really understand what it is that we're going to be facing here, and so that we can be prepared for that and be proactive, not reactive about it. So I respectfully ask the board to consider that.
I believe we looked at, had a traffic impact done. Delisa, you can correct me if I'm wrong, during when it was before the Littleton Station Committee. Trip generations, we had, I don't know if Judy Barrett did it, or if we had Flinker and Dodge, is that who?
Yeah,
We did,
I have to go back and look, but yeah.
yeah, we did talk about build out and traffic and that kind of stuff back in that, when it was that board was looking at it for the 2 years that they had it.
Well, I think it would be very helpful to be able to present to the residents so they have an understanding of what's expected.
Okay, we'll see what we have.
That's all I have for now, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, Jerry, do you have anything you want to add? Or do you want to open up?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely need affordable housing. There's no arguing there, but I think you're going to be asking the residents to approve something knowing that there's a builder coming. And so it's a chicken and egg problem, right? You know someone's coming to build, you know as soon as we approve it, they're gonna build, but they don't know what the impact's gonna look like. And so I think we're gonna have trouble selling this without being able to answer those questions on the floor. I think this should go part and parcel with what the proposed development's gonna look like, what the traffic study is for that development, what the offsets look like for that development. If you're just going in front of the town with a 40R knowing that this is coming, you're asking people to take a leap of faith. So I think it should go part and parcel with what's being proposed so that can be discussed. Otherwise, I think your odds of winning are slim. It's a lot of density, and without understanding what it means to the local residents, I mean, it's going to be a floor vote. It only takes a couple of streets to show up and you're done. So I'm just saying it would be better by the time you get to the floor if people understood what that was going to look like. And because I agree, once it's built, it's done, you got what you got, and we'll live with it for a long time. But without knowing what it really means, it's a leap of faith.
Okay. We'll have to go back to our notes from the other, because we do have that. We have total build out, we have traffic. We had to build it all the way from the train station all the way up to Gutierrez. Remember, Delisa, we had thousands of units up there. We had a traffic counts done, things like that. We'll get those numbers from our old consultants, and we'll get back to it. We're probably gonna have one more meeting before town meeting anyway. So we'll get the traffic numbers for that one, for what we have from this.
But I don't, the bylaw itself, it's not a bad bylaw. I think it does what you're trying to accomplish. It's just a question of like, what's it going to mean to the town? What's it going to mean to the school system?
Well, we've already know, we had the speaking of the school system, we had the report that basically enrollment is going down. It's not, that's not what
the school board's saying now. You may have done that back in 2017, but that's not the story coming off the school board now. That's what I'm saying. Like, why do this at risk on the floor? Make sure you got everybody lined up supporting that. Otherwise, it's a waste of time.
Well, it's basically more senior housing that we're looking for there as well, by the way, Jerry.
I know you want senior housing, but you also need affordable housing for the buds and all that, and that means families. I mean, let's just be honest about what's going to happen. That way, you'll get a good outcome. If people don't feel it's transparent, you're not going to get a good outcome.
All right. We'll dig up the data that both of the consultants gave to us when they were doing the build out scenarios. Okay, Delisa, do you have anything before we open it up to the public?
No, I think I've already stated everything I had to say.
Maren, do you have anything else? No.
One more time. I wanted to go back to a question that Delisa had early on for me, and that was some old aerial photographs. I just want to share it quickly.
Just the apple.
One more step. Yeah. So you had asked, so this is aerial photographs from the 1990s from Mass GIS. This is the 245 Foster Street site here. You can see a lot of it was controlled, my guess is mowed. And then the apple orchard was on the 191 Foster Street site and somewhat on the 245 Foster Street site. So that was as recent as the 1990s. It was heavily used for agriculture.
Okay. Because now when you look at the map, you can't see that. It just looks, to me, it just looked like a ton of trees.
Right. You can maybe pick out some of the lines, but or apple orchard has become overgrown with, there's a lot of invasive species, a lot of bittersweet, and a lot of multiflora rosa. Well, I didn't say that correctly, but
Okay.
so anyway, that was my only other point.
Okay.
So we do have comment Kay Horn. Dave will help us with that.
What did you say, Maury?
Kay Horn.
Hello.
Yep, go ahead.
Hello, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Hi, yes, thank you. My name is Kristen Horn. I'm an abutter to the proposed development on Foster Street. I want to thank you for your time this evening, and as well as for your consideration for all the questions that my husband and I have provided. And we do look forward to continuing to get responses from the board along those questions. I do appreciate and understand that there will be development behind us. However, our concern is really about the density really that is going to be back there. I do appreciate that you all in the last version that's of the bylaw that is posted to the site, that you did cap the number of units. However, I still firmly believe that 523 units being built on a less than 40-acre piece of property is too many units. I also don't fully understand and appreciate maybe the rights that the planning board has in further limiting the number of units that would be developed back there. I appreciate that the plan is not, laid out, and you don't necessarily have a developer that's on already developing the land. But, does the planning board have the ability to further limit the number of units that go in there? My second question is around affordable housing for our seniors. I really truly believe that you all are looking out for our seniors and younger adults in Littleton, and appreciate the needs for affordable housing. But there's nothing in the bylaw that guarantees that housing goes for seniors in our community or to younger residents within our community. And if that is truly a focus of, why we want to build in this area, is there a way that we can build that into the bylaw? I'm not sure if that's allowed by 40R, but, that is really what you all are selling for this community here, that we need that housing for these populations, and these populations are not being represented in that bylaw. And then lastly, my last question for this evening, and I'm sure I'll probably have more as we go further, but is in regard to having this 40R district in this location, as opposed to, has the board considered the 40R possibly going into where the IBM buildings were? And as that is in the center of town, would be walkable to both town center businesses and would attract more businesses there and be a part of the revitalization of the town center, as well as also being walkable and probably more attractive to younger individuals to the Point, which has and offers several amenities for our citizens. I just was wondering if the town has considered that site for this 40R and then would allow for, more growth that's reflective of the Foster Street community that could then go behind, those houses on Foster Street and towards the train station. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'll just answer one part of it. I don't know if you heard me early on. We still have the 190 units that we were talking about that would be attached. There would be independent or assisted living that would be attached to the nursing home. That's why we're up to such a high number. But the intention is 330 units that are going to be the high density, and then 80. Is it 80, Martin, or 88 units that would be single-family duplexes? Those are the numbers that we are ultimately going to bring before town meeting for your support. It doesn't appear that the nursing home, the people that own the nursing home, are interested in this procedure with us, so we're not going to be moving forward with something that actually made perfect sense to the seniors have talked about aging in place, putting something at the nursing home where they could go from independent living to assisted living to nursing home care if they needed it. So it'd be all in one place. They're not interested. So that probably will be withdrawn from the bylaw, and that's 190 units right there. So that's why there's a difference between the 520, I believe, and the 420, the 320 that we're talking about.
Mark, I'll correct that. 123, I think, is the maximum number of units on the 191 Foster Street parcel.
I can't remember all the numbers.
Yeah, I know, and they have changed a couple times as MAPC has helped us work through what the numbers are. To the second question, in order to comply with federal fair housing laws, the town cannot limit sales and rentals only to Littleton residents. That would be illegal. And as to another 40R district, Part A of the current, Part A of the 40R bylaw is the one that sets up the ability of the town to establish 40R districts. Part B establishes the Littleton Station Area District. And I could foresee sometime in the future the town looking at other 40R districts.
Yeah. Lauren specifically mentioned the IBM site, and I think that's certainly a very interesting idea. But at the time, that IBM site was not available, which is why we did not look at it.
And also, it probably has like a $40 or $50 million price tag for what it is right now. We'd have to buy that, knock it all down, and put housing there. And
I think it's actually marketed at 60 million.
Is it 60? So I don't think
Well, you didn't have to knock it down. You could just turn it into just all apartments.
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, if we're not.
Probably cost us more to do that. But anyway,
right. And then I would point out that in the Littleton Station District, we are setting at the maximum allowed by law for local preference.
Right. So there is some local preference that is allowed for both affordable and senior housing. And we're going to try to get the maximum amount. Go ahead, Anna.
I would just like to thank you, Ms. Horn, for speaking this evening and your letter. I think that what I heard you say is that nowhere in the bylaw have we actually specified that we are looking to target seniors and young people in the community. So, Maren, I think that might be different, though, than actually what the federal fair housing laws say to restrict it. We're not restricting it, just as we had to do with two of our senior residential developments. We could target them and specify that this is what the town wants, so that we are essentially messaging to developers that this is what the town wants and will look very favorably upon if we are getting the developments that are focused for seniors and young adults. So
Well-
I would actually ask that we try to put some language related to that in the bylaw.
Okay, I think that would fit right under B1, under the purpose, just to expand on that a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
That is something that we have discussed with the, with the property owner. And they're very much interested in building those kinds of units. So,
I definitely respect your butters concerns about the density. And my feeling is, when I looked into 40R in general, I think the state has pushed to get the maximum number of units allowed. But if you look statewide in the 40R districts, I think it's not much more than 10% of the permitted units have been developed. And I talked to Maren about this, and she said, yeah, the state's frustrated, but that may be because it may be an overreach on this site to develop that many units with the height, the topography, the parking, the septic, the this, the that. We're not talking about a specific proposal. We're talking about a
Potential.
it's a concept.
It's a hypothetical, and we have to.
And I really doubt that density could ever be achieved on that site. But
We have to put best case, or as some people would say,
yeah,
worst case.
and I think that's what's happened.
What's going to happen.
in the 40R
Right.
projects that have been developed, but yet they have not. Then developers come in and they can't do.
But Jeff, I think you gotta look at the times when those things were being built. I mean, this is
That's true.
the lowest housing inventory in the last 70 years of the United States. I mean,
Yeah.
prices are through the roof for a reason. I couldn't imagine you couldn't push for higher density there simply because the market is so right. And you'd be crazy if you were a developer not to try and.
But there are physical constraints. I mean,
Oh, of course.
Maybe,
I mean, you're gonna have to deal with the soil that's contaminated from all the apple trees that was sprayed back in the 60s and 70s. I mean, there's all kinds of headaches on that property that whoever is gonna develop is gonna have to deal with. Septic, drainage, all that's gonna limit. You're not gonna get, I agree with you, you're not gonna get 500 units.
No.
I mean, originally, we were always looking at something around like 250, something like that. Those are the proposals we've seen in the past.
Right.
So you'll probably come in somewhere close to that, but it's still 250 units. You're not going to see it unless you're on 495. It's not like anybody's going to experience it, but it will exit in one location back onto Foster Street because that property behind the senior center hasn't sold. If they sold, then we could get another access road onto Harwood, and that would take pressure off of Foster, but that hasn't materialized yet. So I mean, there's possibilities in the future for abatement, right? It's not like it's a closed door forever. So there could be eventually another access that materializes, but that'll be up to the developer to really work with that landowner to see if they can come up with a resolution. So there's ways to mitigate it, but again, it's going to be a sell on the floor. So you're going for a vote. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. All right, Maureen, anyone else have their hands up?
Yep, Sammy A.
Hello? Can you hear us? Hello, anyone there?
Sammy A.
Anyone? Sammy? Are you there? No, guess not, Maureen.
Okay. Marge Payton is here. I'm not sure if Marge was wanting to.
Still mute.
Hi there.
Hey, Marge, how are you?
I'm good. How are you all?
Good, thanks.
I
Sorry to
was,
put you on the spot.
Yeah, you did. I'll forgive you though, Mary. But I really, I can't, I'm really watching and interested as a resident tonight. I can't speak for the Council on Aging because we have not taken a vote on where, I officially what our feeling is about 40R in the smart growth district, et cetera. But, I've been listening to people and I'm so happy to hear you all, recognize and admit there is a huge need for senior housing. And I don't think I have to go over the statistics with people, but, I'm just saying, keep it up. And it's going to be a long, I was talking to someone today and, we realize we'll be dead and gone by the time we ever see affordable housing in this town, but for seniors. But we know you're working on it. We support it and we know there is a huge need and that has been documented. The statistics and the numbers about seniors in town is growing. The Donahue Institute, at UMass made this prediction by the year 2030 to be over 40%, and we're on track, right, heading right down that direction. So keep up your good work and keep working at it. We know it's going to take time.
Thank you, Marge.
So thank you.
All right, anyone else?
Kimberly Mayo.
Hi, am I unmuted?
You good?
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Kimberly Mayo, Littleton native who moved away and then came back. Littleton residents, please encourage your friends and neighbors to come out to town meeting to vote June 12th against Littleton Station Village and oppose this request to rezone. There is no absentee ballot, so we need to show up. We've done some outreach on Nextdoor, and I'd like to thank Littleton residents as well as experts from neighboring communities for their input. We plan to blitz social media as we get closer to June, and thanks also to those who mailed good old-fashioned letters. Otherwise, I never would have known my apple orchards and wildlife were in danger of being destroyed. Thanks to the abutters tonight with lawyers. I love it. This land is very sentimental to me. So again, what's important is getting people to vote against it, but for the sake of this meeting, it doesn't hurt to summarize concerns and share comments. So here they are. Multiple witness accounts mention the schools are over capacity, 28 to 30 plus students per class with no additional room. Yet we understand per Cindy Napoli, more schools will not be built. This would certainly put a strain on teachers and it's unfair to students. How is this possible? Next, what environmental due diligence has been done given this land being a key wildlife corridor near Bumblebee Park, Mill Hill, Newtown Hill, and Town Forest? Moose was photographed 1 mile from the proposed site. Endangered landing turtles were also, one endangered landing turtle was photographed and documented with Mass Wildlife close by, which we submitted to the planning board. Do town officials seriously think this huge development can mix with wildlife who were there first, or do they simply not care? Next, have updated studies been done regarding train ridership since it has changed dramatically since COVID, with some companies already permanently declaring remote work? Multiple witness accounts point to the fact that it's impossible to live in Littleton without a car. So the 900 or so new projected residents pose an unsafe traffic nightmare, even with a road expansion, but also a carbon emissions nightmare as well for cars. Also, not everyone can take the train to work. According to today's Boston Globe, Boston has hundreds of city-owned vacant lots, many blighted. This is a better location for an urban, high-density development, which is totally not in keeping with Littleton's charming rural character. Littleton ranks number 6 out of 351 towns in Massachusetts for the most newly developed land. Enough is enough. As mentioned tonight, Littleton is at 13%, exceeding the affordable housing standard. What is being done to fix up the units we have now if the town is truly passionate about this? Last time I was in one, 6 years ago, where my grandmother lived, it was a mess. I spoke of my personal experience at Pine Tree Apartments on Shattuck Street. Old worn carpets, people smoking in the units. I realize it's not an apples to apples comparison with the proposed housing, but it's very disingenuous for town officials to say they're dedicated to affordable housing when clearly they are not. And to the young woman on the last Zoom call who lamented she could not afford to live in her hometown and wants a shiny new affordable townhome, I too couldn't afford my hometown of Littleton either until I reached an older age and had saved up. I live down south where the cost of living is a lot less. I had roommates, I lived with family, etc. People take second jobs. Not everyone can afford Littleton. It's expensive, and that's okay. Is her housing preference more important than the wildlife who were there before her? I would want to ask her if she's still on the call tonight. And lastly, the addition of family housing negatively contributes to town finances by a 2 to 3 times factor. The taxes and business gained is proven not to offset the costs created, according to a town planner in Harvard. We seem to also have plenty of vacant commercial space, which was mentioned on tonight's meeting. So these are the high-level concerns, and now I do want to share a brief sampling of resident input. One lady mentions, when we had a previous town meeting about developing the land, I expressed concern over the traffic at Taylor Road exit ramp to Route 2. Now you can add the Amazon distribution center to the equation as well. Next, with a current population of about 11,000, this development would increase the town by approximately 8%. This seems unreasonable to many of us who live here. This also points to Littleton's lack of comprehensive development plan. The town is all kind of awful, or at least, the downtown is all kind of awful, or at least leaves much to be desired. Meanwhile, the roads to Acton and Westford are rapidly infilling as a strip mall. The point was built, and now more commercials coming to town. There's still time to prevent this, but once it's done, it's done. Speaking to environmental concerns, which personally is my greatest concern, the focus these days is creating wildlife corridors that allow safe movement and a depth of habitat for those who can't live on the fringes. The land is central to Bumblebee, Long Lake, Mill Hill, as I mentioned. And I'd like to echo another post and say housing is the most expensive type of a development for a town. We would definitely have to build more school capacity if many new families move in, and I don't think it would be attractive to residents abutting against the train tracks in 495. Amon says, actually, the schools are already busting at the seams. I do have 2 kids here in the upper schools, and I'm active in the PTA. The schools are full. I always listen to moms. And then lastly, we built a high school 20 years ago and a middle school 10 years ago. The primary and elementary school, I'm a proud graduate of both, have not been expanded or significantly modified in the 20 years I've been in town, with class sizes being a huge factor in what defines a top community, and our class sizes skyrocketing. My son's 6th grade class needed an entire extra class added in the 5th grade, jumping from 5 classes to 6. This development is a terrible idea. There are no empty classrooms, which mean class sizes go up. I live around the corner from the T station. The roads are not ready for the cars we already get, and forget about adding thousands of additional cars a day. All that said, Littleton town officials have shown absolutely no will when it comes to resisting development or even placing parameters around it. Amen, sister. And there are a few more, I'm sorry, my page didn't show as I was reading it quickly. What many people against this development seem to be concerned about is the influx many families will put a serious strain on the resources of the town. This will mean more building for town services and response. The developer is asking for a zoning change, presumably because the town didn't want a large quality of homes put in there. We've had a large number of developments built fairly recently, and it sounds like the town is still trying to catch up with that influx. In addition, the road structure around there is not designed for the typical, even with the road expansion, it would not be designed for typical mass movement of people each morning and evening. Not everyone works in Boston or anywhere that they can just hop on the train for transportation. As I stated, the reality is most will still have a car and drive to and from work. And the last comment was, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the actual area they're talking about. I lived about a mile away from the better part of 10 years, and I grew up there and lived there myself for much longer than that. The road is currently better today than it was back then, but it's still a goat path that's been paved over. It's not a minor concern that will dump huge amounts of traffic into an area unplanned that can't handle it, even with the proposed road expansion. So we would love to see the land undeveloped, of course, but feel that industrial would be the lesser of two evils. And then last but not least, I'd like to thank Senator Jamie Eldridge and his staff for their help with our opposition group, COOL, Citizens Opposing Overdeveloped Littleton. Littleton's planning department has not posted many of our opposition points and has been extremely difficult to work with. So let's vote this ridiculous Littleton Station Village down on June 12th. And I also ask when election time rolls around, which I'll be posting on social media, that we vote the following, one of our members will vote the following members out of office. And those include Cindy Napoli, Chuck DeCoste, Matt Nordhaus, Mark Montiera, and Eliza Lazaro. A vote for them is a vote against wildlife, our schools, and public safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. And by the way, my name is Montanari.
Yeah,
So
and my
please
name's
give it right.
Delisa Laterzo.
Yes.
Well, I'm
Thank you.
half Sicilian, so my apology if I butchered the last
You
name.
did.
Yeah, you
Thank you.
certainly did.
Yes, thank you. Mind?
One more, SASLAM, SAS,
Slow.
yes, go ahead.
Oh, are you there?
You'll need to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, my name is Sami Aslam. I'm a resident of 4 Jillian Way. And I have provided my comments regarding the Littleton Smart Growth Overlay District in writing. But I'm here to convey that I am not in favor of this rezoning as it currently proposed. And just hearing the discussion among the board, it appears to me that there is some confusion around the process and also just the version and the language that the board is not ready at this time to forward this bylaw change to the town meeting for spring. I think the board needs additional time, and especially the residents. We have not seen, as this development is going to really forever change the character of this rural neighborhood with dense housing development. And we haven't really seen the impact analyses, for example, from the school district. The traffic was talked about, but we haven't seen that posted on the website for us to review and consider. We haven't seen analysis done by the police department, as the board should require, and the fire department to really study this. Those studies need to be performed and presented to the residents of Foster Street for us to consider before the board recommends that this be brought to the town meeting. And I think that was a concern raised by one of the board members also. I think currently this property is about 30 acres. It is zoned industrial, and we have seen some other industrial properties and developed nearby, and they seem to be fit into the rural character of the neighborhood. Someone mentioned that perhaps some other developer will come in and build something, but they won't be building highly dense multi-story housing there, right? So they, as currently zoned, they could be building a warehouse that will have to meet the town height requirements. Perhaps additional parking that could be used for the train district. But at this point, I don't think the board has enough information that it is ready to forward this proposal to the town meeting. And I would urge other residents to, if the board does move forward to this proposal to the town meeting, I would urge other residents to go and oppose this and vote against this proposal at the town meeting in spring. Thank you.
Thank you. Marty, anyone else have their hands up?
No, there are no other hands raised.
Okay, thank you. So are we going to have one more meeting with this before we go to town meeting? Obviously. What's the date? May 6th? Is our next meeting?
Right. Our next meeting is Thursday, May 6th.
So why don't we put this on for 7 o'clock? Seems good. We'll do 7 o'clock. By that time, we'll see if we can get up the what traffic what traffic studies we had, density calculations, whatever we had from the study group, we'll make that available. And we'll continue this till May 6th.
Yeah,
at 7 p.m.
and give me a moment, I'll find the draft agenda. We have a couple other continued hearings for applications. But we can move forward with the others. And there is one more person with their hand raised now. Michael Gruar.
Hi. Yeah, so I'm Michael. I just wanted to say thanks for going through all this. I guess unlike some of the other questions, I'm glad that more affordable and more density is being talked about in terms of just, we moved to Littleton last year, but part of that was because, well, we were priced out of where we used to live, and I'd rather not have that happen here. So I just wanted to say thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so a time, and hopefully we'll be further along with the, and I apologize for the confusion, with DHCD. They're the ones that are actually driving how this bylaw is going to be finally done for town meeting floor to get everything in a format that they're comfortable with. It's done all over the state. There's 40R in Plymouth, there's 40R in Grafton. If you look it up online, there's 40Rs are being done all over different communities in the town, and where we have to format this that's comparable to what DHCD wants. So that's why we'll get it done. We'll hopefully have everything prepared before town meeting. So what time?
So yeah, thank you for a moment to look at the draft agenda for May 6th. We have the 6:45 continued public hearing for 531 King Street, but we anticipate that will be withdrawn. And we have the 30 Taylor Street with no new information at 7. So I would recommend we put this at 6:40 p.m.
Could we do it after this? Because I don't want to start it and stop it. I just want to keep going with it.
Okay, well then at 7:15 we have the Northern Bank public hearing. So 7:30.
Sure. Why don't we do 7:30?
Okay.
Okay.
But we have the 2 other zoning bylaws within this public hearing as well.
Right. We're going to work on those. We're going to hit those right now, see if there's any issues with them. Maybe we don't have to discuss them at the next meeting. We'll just wait and see how those play out. So the second one is the adult use marijuana delivery regulation for bylaw. And just to bring people up to speed again, the state has decided that they're going to allow you to buy marijuana products online for delivery. So if we have no bylaw in place, then everybody can come into Littleton and sell products online to Littleton residents. If we have a bylaw and we restrict how many, at least gives us some way to regulate how many people are selling product online in the town of Littleton. If Littleton has marijuana allowed, you could buy it somewhere else and still have it delivered. But as far as in-town facilities that will be selling it online, we're looking at it, restricting it to 2. So we have to finish off the bylaw for this to get it ready for a vote at town meeting, for town meeting. Go ahead.
This doesn't restrict another courier from delivering to a resident of Littleton.
Not at all. It just restricts another carrier.
All this is governing is how many operators we can have. And
Correct.
Yeah, I thought I heard you say something different.
No, anybody, if you buy it from delivery out of Lowell, they can deliver it to Littleton. Because we sell it, we will be selling it retail, they're allowed to deliver it to Littleton. It's who can set up in Littleton.
And we get the tax, like we get part of the revenue.
Right, if we have it in town, we get the revenue from it. Yes, Anna. You're muted.
Sorry about that. So speaking of revenue, I had a question, and Maren, I believe you may have been on this particular event. last month, the MMLA and the chair of the Cannabis Control Commission were on a webinar. And I heard what I thought them say was that courier income is only from the fee charged to deliver, and that poses an issue for the town. So the couriers are using the city infrastructure, but they're not necessarily contributing to it. And there wasn't a lot of opportunity to ask that question. So I'm just wondering, Maureen, if you happen to recall that question and whether or not anybody else, any other board members that understand what's going on here can confirm whether or not courier income will actually be less for us.
My take on that was the revenue to the town is from the sales tax for the retail sales. And that is why you would recommend, or perhaps the select board would recommend, couriers partner with local retail stores in order to deliver locally.
Okay, but so that means that a courier themselves can't be one of the providers on their own, or they can be?
They're not.
They're not. They're
Okay,
separate.
all right. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Then I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Board have any other questions? And we've decided that 2 is the number. We want to go with 2. Like we have retail, we're going to have 2 couriers as well. Okay, Anna, go ahead. You had another question?
So I'm going to go for my pie in the sky vision here and ask what others think about this idea. So when we went through the Amazon application a couple of months ago, I know that we really tried to get them to put electric vehicles at their site sooner the better. Being green these days is really important, obviously. And so what do you think about the idea of asking, not a commitment, not anything else, but just an ask that electric vehicles be used in the fleet? Because again, if we're talking couriers and they're going to have who knows how many cars each, that's more emissions into our Littleton area. So what are your thoughts on something like that?
I understand the sentiment. I don't even disagree with the goal, but I think technology will overtake that on its own. It's just, it's not, those cars, the electric vehicles don't have the range right now, can't stay abroad long enough to be viable. That's why they're all pilot implementations. So, it's going to happen. I don't disagree with you. But most of the fleet should be electric, but why not let the market take care of that rather than trying to push it?
I don't know if we can actually restrict that. I would think that the state might have something to say about that we have to mandate that you have to be green in order to sell cannabis.
And that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't want to mandate it, but could we put it in there as a way for them to be community friendly, is to consider having electric vehicles? That's all I'm saying.
You want to incentivize it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, right, but you got to give them something for it.
Yeah, what's the incentive then?
We have charging stations around town. They can perhaps have a conversation with our Littleton Electric Department. Just saying, we all have to do our little bit.
I don't know.
Mandated.
Well, we can put it in as a condition of approval if you want to do it that way. That
I would not be in
Just be
favor
like
of
providing.
putting it in
charging
as a
station
condition
or-
for approval. I think it's great to recommend it. I would certainly hope they would do it, but I would not be supporting it as a condition.
Yeah, I would agree with Delisa as a recommendation, as a request.
All right. So we'll ask them real nice when they come before us. How's that? I don't think we should put it in the bylaw that it's something to consider. We can ask them when they come before. If in fact somebody does come before us, we can ask them very nicely. How's that?
Okay, that sounds great. Thank
Okay.
you.
Anybody else on the board? Is there anyone with their hand raised, Mari? No. So we're good with this one. So this one's ready for town meeting, correct?
Yep, I would suggest that the board vote to recommend it to town meeting and vote to support it at town meeting.
You want to close the hearing, vote to recommend?
Well,
No?
technically,
No?
close the hearing with respect to the marijuana delivery bylaw.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, so you want to close and then vote to see about supporting it at town meeting floor?
Mhm.
Okay. Anyone want to make a motion to close the hearing, the adult use marijuana delivery for the town of Littleton?
I make a motion.
To close.
Second it.
Okay, all in favor? Anna,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Delisa,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, now I'll entertain a motion to support the article to bring it before town meeting for a town meeting vote. Who wants to make that motion?
I make that motion.
Okay. who
I'll
wants to
second it.
Delisa seconds it. All those in favor? Anna,
Yes.
Delisa,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, so we got that one out of the way. Last but not least is the amended senior residential development and inclusionary housing bylaw. Do we have any discussion, any talk about this one? Anna?
So I had asked at the last meeting that we try to not have any kind of a cap on the number of senior units, and Mara put that through to town council, and it seemed like everything was good. So that item in the proposed amendment is item 4D, and so that would be stricken. And so when we go to town meeting, that would
There'll be no cap.
there would be no
Okay.
cap, right?
Does anyone have any problem with that?
No.
I don't.
No cap on density or AMI?
On number. Remember the number 64 that we had been talking about previously?
I'm drawing a blank.
So in the bylaw, it had a number that would restrict the number of units to actually be built to 64. And so without having any solid rationale for that particular number, we discussed at the last meeting to not have that in there.
Finite number.
Yeah, exactly.
But you still have the overall density requirements.
Yeah, that doesn't change.
So the cap's kind of doesn't make sense. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, got it.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions or concerns about it? Maren, does anyone have their hands up?
No, there are no hands raised. And Anna, thank you for bringing that up. Now I understand your question from earlier this afternoon.
Okay. All right, so are we ready to propose this at town meeting floor?
Yeah, make a motion.
So I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
With respect to the senior residential and inclusionary zoning bylaw update.
Update, yep, I'll entertain a motion. I think Jerry made the motion and wants to second it.
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor? Anna,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Delisa,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to approve bringing the amended senior residential development and inclusionary zoning bylaw to town meeting on June 12th, for the voters to approve or disapprove.
And the planning board supports?
Yeah, we support bringing it to town meeting, yes. So all right, I guess Jerry's made that motion.
Make another motion.
All right. Who's going to second it? Delisa again?
Yes, I'll second it.
Anna did. Okay, all those in favor? Delisa?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Annie?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So we got 2 out of 3 out of the way, Maren. So we'll just continue the first one, the A. Great. So we have 8:30. We're right on time. Wow. stormwater bylaw update. Do we have to do this?
The only thing I would recommend is you vote to send it to town meeting and to support it at town meeting. Not that the planning board needs more work, but
No.
EPA and state are saying
I know.
we
that
need
have
to give our peer review engineers more work.
Yes.
Hmm.
Anyone want, why don't we just send this off to town meeting, let us discuss it there.
Yeah, the latest version of the bylaw went by Conservation Commission and went by the Select Board a couple times, and I recommend the latest version of it.
Okay.
This is like a joke, right? To make us have a stormwater bylaw.
Well, I do think the revised language does make it stronger and even clearer, so.
Yeah, and it covers a couple holes that haven't been addressed previously.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so.
Gary, you're gonna miss these conversations, you know? You're gonna miss us.
Are you kidding? He's going to call in and heckle us.
Yeah.
He won't be heckling me.
I'm gonna have 3 hours or less Zoom time in a week. That's what
All right, okay, so are we ready to send this off to town meeting floor? Yeah, I think everyone says yes, so do we want to close a hearing that we never really opened?
Well, it's a general bylaw, not a zoning bylaw, so it didn't require a hearing.
All right, so how about somebody make a motion that we forward this, support this at town meeting floor, the town meeting?
100%.
All right, all those in favor? Delisa?
Aye.
I'm gonna go next. I say aye. Anna?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
All right, great. So any other board business, Martin? We good?
We're good.
Okay, so May 6th, again, we'll try to get some more data for traffic and that kind of stuff for the board. Any other questions? You know where to find Maren. I'll entertain a motion that we dissolve this meeting until May 6th. We dissolve it for good, who knows?
So move.
I'm a second. All
Aye.
those in favor? Aye, 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 aye. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Aye.
All right, good night.